We've all been there. You sit down to do one simple task, but within seconds, your focus shatters. Your eyes dart around, looking for any possible distraction to pull you away from the work in front of you. It feels like a failure of willpower. But that's because we misunderstand what the mind actually is. It is not a single unified entity. It's more like a chaotic corporate boardroom filled with competing subminds. Visual processors, auditory monitors, emotional alarm bells, all shouting over each other for attention. Somewhere at the head of that table sits the narrator. This is the voice in your head that you probably identify as you. It constantly talks, rationalizes, and desperately acts like the CEO, pretending to be in charge of this unruly committee. But the CEO is powerless. When a wave of anxiety hits or a sudden urge to check your phone takes over, the narrator didn't choose that. It just scrambles to make sense of the noise. This illusion of control, the belief that you should be dictating every thought, is the exact mechanism driving our daily exhaustion. To understand why the boardroom is so loud, we have to look at the brain's internal wiring. This animated diagram maps out the default mode network. It's a series of interconnected brain regions that activate whenever we aren't focused on a specific external task. Evolution built this network for survival. For early humans, deep relaxation was dangerous. Whenever the mind was idle, this network would generate a low-level discomfort, a restless energy that forced our ancestors to constantly scan the horizon for threats, food, or mating opportunities. We no longer live on the savanna, but that machinery is still running. In modern life, we rarely face physical threats, so the brain seeks out whatever else it can find to resolve that baseline discomfort. We feed the boardroom's hunger with endless, low-effort micro-stimulations, like apps and social media feeds. The committee inside your head learns very quickly. It has trained itself to use these digital distractions as the automatic response to any moment of quiet. The instant that ancestral anxiety flares up, a submind demands a hit of dopamine, and we reach for our screens. You cannot simply order this network to shut down. Willpower fails because the brain is doing exactly what it was built to do, seeking an escape from its own internal discomfort. Training the boardroom requires a different approach. The instruction is simple. Sit down, close your eyes, and place your attention on the physical sensation of breathing. Almost immediately, the subminds revolt. Within seconds, the committee starts throwing urgent demands at you. You remember an unread email, you replay a past awkward conversation, or you start planning dinner. In meditative traditions, this state of rapid, uncontrollable distraction is called the monkey mind. Attention swings wildly from one urgent thought to the next. The untrained CEO usually responds to this chaos with force. The narrator gets frustrated and tries to muscle the committee into submission, using willpower to demand that the mind stay completely blank. That friction backfires. Scolding the mind creates a disharmony feedback loop. The frustration itself becomes a new distraction, making the internal environment even more agitated. As neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris explains, the goal is not to successfully suppress your thoughts. The actual practice is the act of waking up to the fact that you are distracted. The training happens in the moment awareness returns. When you catch the mind wandering, you acknowledge that transition without any judgment and simply redirect the committee's attention back to the breath. Over time, the nature of your thoughts changes. Harris compares this to thieves entering an empty house. When an anxious thought arises, there is no emotional reaction left for it to steal. It simply passes through without triggering a crisis. Every time you patiently return to the breath, you deliver new information to the unconscious mind. This repetitive, non-judgmental reinforcement acts as a structural reprogramming, gradually teaching the subminds that they no longer need to fight for control. With consistent practice, the mind reaches a state called mental pliancy. The internal boardroom stops shouting. The competing subminds finally align, unifying around a single shared intention to stay present. This unification silences the constant, restless scanning of the default mode network, a system that usually consumes a disproportionate share of the brain's energy. When these subminds stop fighting for control, that mental energy begins to flow in a single coherent direction. In this deep quiet, the ultimate insight emerges. The narrating CEO, the voice you thought was you, realizes it is not the boss. It is just another voice at the table, dissolving into the silence. There is no central, isolated self driving the machine. There is only experience. You are left with a unified system, processing the present moment clearly. This unification process aims for a permanent structural change. It shifts the baseline so that the state of awareness reached during practice becomes the new starting point for every moment that follows. The scientific validation for these changes traces back to early psychological research conducted at Harvard University. Researchers like Daniel Goleman and Richie Davidson dedicated their careers to proving that these contemplative practices create enduring biological changes. Their research on long-term practitioners showed that meditation alters brain function long after the session ends, leading to measurable increases in altruism, sustained focus, and even the mammalian circuitry for parental love. These practices function as an executive training program for the mind. By reorganizing how the subminds interact, meditation replaces the habits of baseline chaos with a profound and stable presence.